strap yourself in for Keeping It Real with Jac Ral.
Happy days. Welcome back, Ral. This is Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral.
I'm Gabrielle Dolan.
I'm Jack Phillips.
Welcome back, keepers.
And this is Late Line. That's what it felt like.
This is Late Line. Hey, we are technically doing our first live podcast right now as we speak.
Are we, Ral?
Because your lovely dad is sitting in the background. And Jack said, now, Dad, you're not allowed to make a noise. And I went, bullshit, Merv. Every time she says something you don't disagree with, just
trouble.
go, bullshit.
She's trouble.
I did not raise you that way.
You're
Stop swearing. Tell her to stop swearing, Merv, every time she swears.
Don't you dare. You say nothing. You be a good boy, Day. That's what we call him, Day.
Day.
Maddie came up with that name.
Ah.
Funny how kids name grandparents a name and it sort of sticks. Did your kids name their
I have
grandparents?
thought about, though, if I become a grandparent, what I'd be called. And I'm thinking genius.
I can hear that one coming.
I just think that would be hilarious if you were
It wouldn't be Nana humility, that's for sure.
No, if you're babysitting the kids and you taught them to say genius and then they're at home and they go, when are we going to visit genius again?
Oh, and everyone else hears it. I'm seeing the T-shirt now.
Yeah.
Genius bought me
Genius
this.
grammar.
This is a great episode. This episode is about a topic that is very close to my heart. I talk about it all the time and I run workshops on it. I know you do as well.
Mm-hmm.
Culture. Chockers with culture.
Chockers with culture. Where does that come from?
Well, there was that movie, The Castle. You remember it?
That's right.
And Eric Banner and Sophie Monk go off to Thailand and they come back from Thailand. It's their first overseas trip and they're telling their parents all about the trip. And Sophie goes, oh, Mum, you would have loved it. It was chockers with culture.
With culture. But culture is important.
Culture's everything.
And so this episode we're going to talk about how to choose your culture, as in so making decisions of the workplaces that you enter into.
And what I love about this is it's not passive. It's actually active, right? You have a choice about the culture that you are in or that you are choosing to go in.
Or that you're choosing to stay in.
Or you're choosing to stay in or not. And that's the point. And it's pretty important, culture. Culture's everything.
Yeah.
And culture starts with... You're allowed to answer that one, Ral.
Well, you keep giving me pop quizzes without...
Well,
starts
I'm
with
making
the
you
leader.
think. Well,
or...
the leader
Actually,
plays
I know what culture starts with.
See.
C.
Culture starts with everybody. Everyone has a
Yes,
responsibility
that is true.
for
No, that
culture.
is true.
Yeah, but when it comes to choosing your culture,
Yep.
so I'm assuming this is somebody who's going for a role and they want to understand the culture better, or maybe they're in a role and a new leader's coming in and they're quite aware that the culture could change,
Yeah,
rightly
definitely,
or wrongly, for good or for bad.
There is that saying that, the fish rots from the head in regards to a culture, like a CEO has an influence,
Massive
and they
influence.
absolutely can.
They absolutely do.
But everyone plays a part.
Everybody plays a part. When I was working in one of the banks a long time ago, we had a very strong new senior leader, and that person brought an entirely new culture with their leadership. And it was a culture that was in misalignment with most of our values of the group that were working and reporting up to that person.
Yeah.
It was really hard because you start to question so much. What it does do, though, it makes you much clearer on what you are prepared to put up with.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
And I made it pretty clear that wasn't going to be what I was going to stay around in, because it was appalling behaviour and appalling culture as a result of it. And other leaders that were trying to impress this leader started to behave the same way, which is what they do, right? Which is how you create a culture.
Absolutely. Role modelling. You can do a lot of work on culture assessment and everything like that. I can almost, because I go in and run internal workshops, I could almost pick up a culture spending half a day
you go in
with, especially if it's the leadership team. And I can just pick it up so much. I can pick it up the way they respond to training, the way they talk to each other and respect each other or not. I had a client once, and I walked in and I was doing half day of a full day, and I actually sat in on the few presentations before me. And the CEO led one of them, and it was almost like the way he spoke about the future. It was a little bit accusing of people, almost sort of, telling people they need to, pull their, work harder and pull their heads in and stuff like that. And I thought it was a bit weird. And then the next session, one of his team presented, And he literally took over. Like there was someone up front presenting.
Oh,
and he
wasn't
kept
him
interjecting.
Wow.
And then he'd go, move to the next slide. And he was interjecting. And at one point, the woman who was meant to be presenting the session, just you could almost go, why did you ask me to do this? When
Did she say that or infer
I actually
that?
spoke to her afterwards and says, does that happen all the time? And she goes, yeah, it does. And I've
Just
told
resigned
him-
myself to
Well,
it.
she has told him that it's not acceptable.
It hasn't stopped.
It hasn't stopped.
Appalling.
Yeah.
Appalling. So culture's very overt, right?
Yeah.
So it's very obvious what a culture is.
Yep.
It's not hidden. It's pretty overt.
It's what you see.
It's what you see. It's
What
how
you
you
see.
feel.
Yep.
And it's what the behaviours of particularly key leaders are demonstrating. Okay, so how do you choose a culture? What
Yeah.
would you do?
Well, I think it's being aware, like almost finding out. So let's do this from a couple of ways. Let's talk about first, say you're going for a new job.
Yes.
And how do you know that the culture you're walking into is going to be aligned? I think, you've told a great story once when you walked in
Yeah.
to a creative and they're all quiet.
Absolutely. So a creative industry that has no noise is a concern. Something's wrong. Either people are void of ideas or personality, which is very rare in a creative industry, or there is a leadership or a sense of we don't want
talk.
humour, we don't want lightness, we don't want personality here.
Yep.
So I think I lasted 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it was a leadership problem, and we weren't getting great creative ideas. Clients didn't like us. It was a disaster.
And but I think when you said, like, how do you know, I think it's being aware that the culture is really important.
Yeah.
So we might look at things about, what salary you're going to get and what promotional opportunities.
What the
and
role type is.
Right, and all that's really important. But if you're aware of the culture or aware to look for it. So a mate of mine went for a job and work-life balance is really important to her. And she sent me a text to say they've suggested the interview is at a pub. And she goes, do you think that's good or bad? And I
Was
thought
she selling beer?
No. And I thought about it for a while and I go, actually, I don't know whether it's good or bad. On the one thing, they talk about work-life balance and maybe he works close to there and you work close to there, so it's genuinely living and breathing.
Convenient.
The work-life balance thing. Look, let's just meet at a pub.
It's also informal. It would encourage a
informal.
conversation.
Exactly.
Those things aren't bad.
Which she said that actually did. She said it actually was probably one of the greatest interview meetings she's
Styles,
had.
yeah.
I go, the downside is you don't get to see the culture. And I go, if you went for a second interview, I would want to be going into the office.
Well, particularly
to
if you're
see
going
that.
into this office regularly.
Yes, and
it's
this
part
was
of
a
it.
job working from the office.
That's right.
So, but anyway, as it worked out, it all worked out fine for her. But it's being aware that
Interesting.
what is that saying about the culture?
In that instance, it worked for her, right? Because she actually enjoyed it. She could relax and that was fine.
Yeah.
Your point is that what it doesn't do is allow her to see what the culture's like in the office that she would also be working in a couple of days a week.
But also, my point was she was conscious of she was conscious of the fact that culture plays a part. Yeah. So she was conscious, is this a good thing? Is this a good sign or a bad sign? So I think that's what I'm saying. Look for the signs.
And don't be afraid to ask in an interview.
Yeah.
Tell me about the culture here.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody can't articulate the culture, they're either a very bad communicator, which there are plenty of leaders who aren't good communicators, or there's alarm bells. Yeah.
Or give me an example, or say what would happen.
example.
What would happen if I needed to? What would happen if I need to leave work to pick up my kids? What normally happens in that situation?
Talk to me about flexibility.
And there'll be sometimes I'll be going, oh, absolutely. Family is priority, rah. Or they'd be going, well, that doesn't happen that often, but I guess if it did happen, you could probably leave and make up the time later. I'd be going, ring, alarm bells right there.
There's an
right
alarm
there. So
bell.
I think it's being aware that the culture plays a significant part in the happiness of your job.
Entirely.
And like we said in a previous episode of Life Partner, where don't make the mistake of falling in with the potential of a life partner. Don't make that mistake with the culture too.
I might be able to go in there and change that culture because I want this job so badly when I sort of know that there's some alarm bells. The other thing is talk to other people. So many jobs we go for, people know people in those roles or in that organisation already, or you can actually find people on LinkedIn who are in those organisations.
Yeah.
Send them a DM. Hey, I'd be really keen to understand, is this a good culture? And if they say yes, so then how do you define that? Or if they say no, so can you give me a bit more information? Do your due diligence.
Yep.
It's not hard to find information.
Okay, so that's important. Once you're starting a job, be mindful of it, and like you said, do your due diligence. That's a hard word to say.
Didn't even have a glass of wine at lunch.
You know, we talked about people I've interviewed at that conference, and Louise Milligan, who is ABC Four Corners reporter, and she's an investigative journalist, right? And I remember I was doing a little video to promote the conference and said investigative, and I can't. It's a hard word to say,
It
right?
is a hard word
and
to
I stuffed it up, and I couldn't say it. And on the video, I said that's a hard word to say. When I was interviewing Louise Milligan, she said investigative journalist. She goes, "That's a really hard word to say." And I go, "Oh my God, snap!" And she goes, "I can't believe I'm actually that type of journalist, and I can't say the word." Anyway,
there you are.
Anyway, I've decided
nothing to do with culture, but that's all right.
No, due diligence.
Due diligence.
Yeah, that's it. See, where was I?
Well, good point.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence. So that's if you are going for a job. What about if you're in an organisation and you are watching a culture unfold that you are not aligned to values-wise?
That is.
What do you do?
Yeah, so
That's tough.
It is tough. So because I think one of the things, and when you say like what's wrong, the culture could be you feel like people are always taking advantage of you. Maybe you're being asked to work like unnecessary long hours and not getting anything in return.
Or behaviours of bullying or abuse or worse, withdrawal of information. So people not speaking.
Yeah.
Holding back
power abuse.
Information, power play.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
That's tough.
Whether there's I always think one is the blame culture. Like if there's a lot of culture of blame, or who
nothing
did that,
worse.
who did what.
Finger
it was like,
pointing.
To me,
Finger-pointing.
it never matters.
No.
Really.
How are we going to solve it?
Especially if it's like a mistake that happened, right?
Well, mistakes happen all the time. It's how you get innovation.
It's like, did I forget? I know with me, I mean, me and Elise, it's only two of us, but it's something of being like, oh,
did you forget the whiteboard?
Did I forget to send that email, or did I not? You sent it, I didn't read it. It's like, what? It doesn't matter. Like, it actually does not matter. It's just, all right, well, sometimes it's a mistake. But if people are constantly blaming other people, that to me is not a very
that says
sign of a
so
great
much about
culture.
that person who's doing the blaming. But if they're a leader and they have influence, then that's a problem. Because what happens when leaders behave badly, so we're just assuming this culture's a bad culture, they're behaving badly, is their direct reports start to say, well, that's what leadership looks like. That's how I should behave.
It's role modelling.
And it's role modelling. And that's a worry, particularly when you've got younger people in your workforce. And maybe it's their first job, They want to be successful. They want to do everything right. They haven't been in this organisation before. They haven't worked for this person before. Oh, that's how I need to behave.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Negativity, that's another.
Yes, pessimism.
You know, when it's like when you sort of go, oh, we could do this. I was like, that won't work. One of my friends, she just turned 60 and she retired. And she goes, I just felt I was turning into one of those people that go, that won't work, that won't work. And, she goes, all these young people would come in with ideas and she goes, I just felt myself
shutting them down
into that. Yeah. And I was like, it's time to go.
Good self-awareness, really good self-awareness. But if you've been in a culture of that, you could see how easy it would be just to continue to repeat that, Yeah. So, and it takes a lot of courage and confidence and boldness to challenge that, and particularly if you're new to a culture. So, okay, so you're in a culture, it's not working, or you're watching a culture that is a misalignment with your values and you're unhappy. What do you do?
Yeah, so what do you do? That's the main thing. I think the first thing is you need to raise it.
Agree.
Like, you got to have a conversation with your manager. And it could be things. Like, it could be things like
small things.
Yeah, like they're showing favoritism to someone, or they are blaming you for everything, or you're being overlooked or whatever. So you do need to have the conversation.
And can I add to that? That conversation should be done one-on-one.
Yes.
And you should go in prepared.
Yeah.
This is how I feel. This is what I'm experiencing, and I just want to raise it so that you're aware of it.
Yeah.
So you start there. It's not a blaming them, even though they might be the one instigating it, and get their feedback and response. Now, part of the whole culture analysis is how do they respond to that feedback?
Exactly. Because you just said before, you got to have the courage. Like, that is a courageous conversation.
It is.
To have with an absolutely
Confronting.
courageous conversation to have with someone. But if you don't, well, first of all, if you don't feel you can
Raise it.
that's a problem right there around the culture.
Correct.
And you're right, how they will respond
Yeah.
is an indication.
Totally. So if you feel you can't raise it because you are fearful of the consequence, you think that it'll be held against you, or you could be terminated or whatever, then you should talk to that leader's boss.
Yeah.
Now, most people don't have a very strong or regular relationship with your boss's boss. Some do.
Yep.
In smaller business maybe, or smaller organisations, but not everyone. So that takes a bit of courage and confidence too.
That takes a lot of courage.
But can I tell you, being the boss of the boss, I would want to know if there were behaviours or a culture that I certainly didn't align with or like. I'd want to know about it.
Do you think you should at least attempt to speak to your leader first?
Always.
Always attempt.
Always. Sorry
And
if
then
that wasn't
if it
clear.
doesn't go to plan,
That's exactly
then
right.
skip
Go to the next
and
leader
go to their
and
boss.
have a conversation. And again,
Have you ever done that?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And I've had it done to me, where I've had 3 levels, and the lower level has come to me about the middle level.
Right.
And I have totally taken that on. And I have made it very clear they were very brave to come and talk to me, and I was really grateful for that. I wasn't aware of that going on, and that it was now my responsibility to certainly talk to that person, and that I would be checking back in with the person who came and spoke with me. So I made it very clear, no, the culture I want's this.
Yep.
And they knew that, hence why they came to me. Because a lot happens behind closed doors, or there's a lot of things that go on from a behavioural perspective that isn't always obvious to other people.
Yeah.
So if you're not aware of it, you can't help change it, right? So it's important that you have that conversation.
It just reminded me of there's some CEOs that have like a chief of staff or an executive manager.
Yeah, true.
And the
A lot.
chief of staff, the CEO has no idea how bad
No.
the executive manager is or whatever.
And the CEO's the same.
Yeah.
They've got even less chance.
Yeah.
Told you about the CEO at the bank who said to me, I've got no idea what's going on in this organisation because there's about 8 layers. Unless I have a relationship with
Yeah.
the bank teller, he was a bank CEO,
Yeah.
I don't actually know what's going on, and I need a trusted relationship because the people that report to me are always going to tell me everything's wonderful. They want bonuses. They want to keep their job. They want to be promoted.
Yep.
It's true, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, okay, so you have a conversation with your manager. Hopefully, that could resolve something. And I think always be specific about
Yes.
this is when this happens.
So
this is
be
how I feel.
prepared.
Be prepared. Absolutely. If you get nothing from that,
Crickets.
and you skip and go to the next manager, I guess what would happen then? I mean, I guess then if that doesn't
work,
yeah, it's time to go.
the signal is very clear. This
Yeah.
is not your place. These are not your people.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you're not alone. And what is interesting, what I've also witnessed, is once one person says, I'm out,
Yep.
talent will follow.
Yeah.
It
you see that all the
absolutely
time.
will. Those that stay around are usually people that are fearful of getting another job somewhere else, so they're probably not deemed talent, or they don't have the confidence to do that, which often tells me that they're not growing and evolving themselves. So what's left is actually not talent. And vote with your feet, I say. Move on.
Yep. Then you need to go listen to heaps of our other podcasts about
And get some advice
job
on how to
interviews
interview.
and coaching, job interviews.
How to succeed at work, how to bring your best self forward. Okay, so we've spoken about the culture as you apply for a role, as you're going into it to learn about it. We've spoken about being in a culture that you want to change. What about you're in a culture, and I'm working with a CEO at the moment who said to me, this stuff's really important. I'm going to set up a culture club. And she's actually identified about 6 people in her organisation.
Is she calling it that, the Culture Club?
She's called it the Culture Club.
Does they sing along to Come a Chameleon?
So she's...
Come and go.
Oh, stop it. Boy George, Boy Ral. So she's picked 6 different people and from 6 different functions of the organisation, so they're all quite diverse, and they come together once a month and they talk about the culture. And not only do they talk about the culture, they represent their teams who are encouraged to feed up behaviours or things that they're happy about, things that they want to see, and they are changing that culture. We started by doing a culture assessment.
Okay.
Harvard Business Review have the most fantastic culture assessment. I've got access to it.
Okay.
So come to me if you'd like a copy of it. Well, you'd need to work with me in order to access it, but it's a really, if you are keen to get a dipstick on the culture of your function or your organisation, this is a great one. Every single person completes this questionnaire, if you will, and it talks about the 8 different styles or cultures that are likely to be in your organisation.
Okay.
And what you do, and there's 2 columns.
Are you going to tell us? Are we going to go through them?
It's pretty cool, and it's a very simple. It's not academic. It's on a scale of 1 to 5. Rate how well each of these statements describes your organisation, and there are 2 columns. The first column is the organisation is focused on, and it covers collaboration and trust, compassion and tolerance, exploration and creativity, fun and excitement, achievement and winning, strength and boldness, planning and caution, structure and stability. So that's one column, and you rate 1 to 5 each of those, how you feel. Second column, this organisation feels like, number 1, a big family. Number 2, a community or cause. Number 3, a dynamic project. 4, a celebration. 5, a meritocracy. 6, a competitive arena. 7, a meticulously planned operation. 8, a smooth running machine. You rate it 0 to 5, each of those.
Okay.
You then add up everybody's scores across both of those, and you start to get an idea of if the culture is caring, purposeful, a learning culture, an enjoyment culture, a results culture, an authority culture, a safety culture, or an order culture. Now, I've just printed off a quick copy of one I did 2 years ago for an organisation, not the one I was just talking about. This organisation will remain nameless. And what's really interesting is as you add up the scores, what you will often get is about 3 very similar scores, There'll always be one that's tipping a little more. So in this case, this organisation was certainly leading as a caring organisation. Their total score was 171, followed by a learning culture, 160. So we're talking, quite a drop between 171 and 160. Thirdly, a purposeful culture, 159.
Right, okay.
So that said, caring, learning and purpose are their key areas. Now, that's wonderful. They sound like great things to do. However, if you're after a high-performance culture, a winning culture, a culture where we actually need to sell more stuff, then I'm not sure that caring is going to be the culture that you need. Yes, it should be a caring culture, but it probably shouldn't be the top culture.
Yeah.
So there's some cool drivers and cool assessments you can do. Then you can run a program based on how do we shift the culture.
And it's not like there's a right or wrong culture, although clearly there can be toxic cultures and better cultures to work for. But it really is, it's like you said, if you are into sales and the pushing for stuff and getting stuff done, and that might not be the culture for you.
Or you are in an innovative startup and your main culture driver is safety and no risk.
Absolutely.
So it's worth doing a culture dipstick, if you will. And this is based on everybody in the organisation. Everyone is responsible for culture.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so I think we should recap some tip and techniques on all of those. So one is to choose, this episode's called Choose Your Culture. So the first one is when you're going for a new role, be mindful of the culture and take the same amount of steps that you would look into, the role description, the pay, the professional development, the culture you're walking into.
Absolutely. Which I would call the how people behave around here.
Yeah, it is. It's how we rock and roll. It's the vibe.
Yep.
As
the
they
vibe.
say, the vibe.
The vibe of the tribe.
The second tip is if you are finding that you're in a role and the culture is not right for you, whether it's changed or you just didn't get it, it wasn't what you'd expected. Speak up. Speak to your manager first. If that doesn't work, speak to their manager. And if that doesn't work, then time to leave. And then the third is if you are running a business or a team
as a leader,
you need to be aware of the culture you want, the culture you have. And I love that idea of getting a culture club in. So you just not driving it, but getting the stuff fed. And it's like these are the behaviours we expect, these are the behaviours we reward and want. It's how we operate around here. And that is, the culture is one of these words, but to me it is. Culture is how we operate.
It is exactly how we operate, and it is everyone's responsibility. Don't be the person, Joe in IT that just moans and whinges about how he doesn't like the culture but actually doesn't do anything to try and change it or contribute to it.
Yeah. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
If you're not speeding me up, you're
slowing me down.
You got it, baby. With that, I think it's time to wrap up. What did you think, Dad? All right?
Fantastic, yeah.
Dad says it's fantastic. He's not biased.
Nerves says it's bloody fantastic. All right, keepers, that's been another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral. As usual, if you like what you heard, 5-star review rating and share it with others. We'll speak to you next time.
Bye.
You've been listening to another episode of Keeping It Real with Jac and Ral. If you like what you've heard, don't forget to tell others about it and give a 5-star review. They may seem confident, but they really are sensitive 5-star needy souls. Yeah, right. Keeping It Real, created by Jack Phillips and Gabriel Dolan. Produced by Keelan Ferrari Brown. And this really real voiceover, spoken by Richard Phillips.